the sound of a wizard-tuned 1984 Kawasaki KX250, the Jolly Green Giant. This was Wizard's personal bike. He framed this thing. Guys, this was one of those rare occasions. We see it every once in a blue moon. We had a 76 CR 250, and now this 84 KX250 that had a bad ignition from the factory, and it was never ridden. It was parked. The owner couldn't get it to run right, and it sat. And we see this actually a fair amount. A lot of the bikes that you see that have no time on them, that are factory fresh 40 years later, it's because, well, they wouldn't run and they had a problem. Well, that was a saving grace for this bike. So you have an absolutely mint set of forks, frame, swing arm. This is a bike that can't have more than 5 hours of runtime on it. And it was just frame off restored by Chris Kelly, the Wizard. And I'll dive right into the work order, and then I'm gonna have Shaylin walk around the bike and show you some of the components. But the bottom of the fork lowers, cherry. The bottom of the frame rails, absolutely mint. The original pipe, almost blemish free. The motor was perfect. Chris pulled it apart, and I'll go over that with you now. But this is the, let's just say all the components inside the motor have been inspected. They're the originals and they're perfect, and the bike has no runtime on it. Compression tested at 220 PSI. It's got a new NGK Spark Plug and a new PVL Ignition System. That was the weak point on this bike. It had a bad ignition, no spark. The cylinder was removed, inspected, and Chris gave it 2 thumbs up. It was perfectly inspected. Piston looked like brand new. He lightly honed the cylinder, checked out the crank and the rod assembly, and it looked great, no play. Thing was fresh, OEM crank in the bike. Full reseal of the engine, added fresh engine coolant, new EBC clutch plates were used, new MTL gear lube. He cleaned, set, and adjusted the carburetor, and as you can tell, it runs and idles just perfect, nice and crispy. Good job, sir. Wizard has done this a time or two. New uni air filter, oiled and installed, drained the fuel, rinsed out the tank, added fresh non-ethanol VPT2. He did note that there were some dents in the pipe that were removed, so that's the original pipe that's almost perfectly straight. There might be a few dimples on the head pipe right here, but this is a really nice original pipe. It's got new Renthal handlebars, new ODI half waffle grips. It's got a new K&S OEM style kill switch. Shaylin, show them the bar setup here. So basically the bar setup's completely new. New pro taper, clutch lever and perch. New OEM brake line clamp. Let me see, over down here on the fork. New OEM brake line clamp. New Cycra front brake guide, excuse me. New replacement clutch and throttle cables. And then there's a hot upgrade here. Back in these days, I mean, the peg setup was just absolutely hellacious. I mean, most of the Jap bikes, I feel like on these old 2-strokes, even into the 90s, you'd have these like skinny little pegs here. Well, it's got 2022 KX450 pegs, thanks to his son Shane for that. Pretty sure Shane hooked it up with those KX450 pegs, and they did the little retrofit, but that's like the perfect set of pegs that you want on this bike. Replaced the front brake caliper. So new Nissan front brake caliper that was flushed, and the slide was greased. Let me see, new OEM brake line clamp. Cleaned and greased the steering head bearings, which are super tight. The whole bike's tight, guys. Everything's in order. And we're gonna show you the frame rails and some of the other items in a second. Service the rear shock, fresh oil and nitrogen. The forks were rebuilt, new seals and fresh oil replaced original fork boots. That's a big deal, guys. If you find a survivor like this, it's gotta get done. Why? Because the fork seals are, well, they're from 1984 and they're dried out, and the forks are gonna blow the first time you tie the bike down. So sometimes they can be good, but hey, Wizard completely went through the suspension. He's a suspension guy by heart. He does everything, but he's a suspension specialist, and this was an easy job for him. All done. Cleaned, greased the swing arm bearings and bushing. Installed all new hardware. So all new hardware throughout the bike, you'll see. Chris is a detail freak. You see on all of our CR builds, he's using drilled hardware and special hardware and OEM hardware kits and stuff like that, but he knows what belongs where, and he has a high attention to detail, and he's absolutely killed it with this. You see the new bolts on the cylinder and the cylinder head, stuff like that. the guy's on point. He's our top dirt bike mechanic here, and he just absolutely kills it. Going down the list here. Installed a new gold final drive chain, new period correct sidewinder rear sprocket. So that's a sprocket from the 80s, but it's new old stock sidewinder. New chain slider and chain block, new EBC brake shoes in the rear. On that topic, Kawasaki was the first production dirt bike to have a disc brake on their bikes in '82. So this is an '84 model, still with the drum rear, but they were the first, if you don't count the Rokon setup that was in the '70s, they started with a disc brake. But for true production motocross racers, this is the first bike that had a disc brake. Installed new GMX tires, Dunlop GMX tires front and rear, new DC plastics kit, new DC OEM style fuel tank, side panel, swing arm graphics. New DC OEM style fuel tank. Oh, so the fuel tank's brand new as well. Let me see. Bike was cosmetically refurbished, complete disassembly. Yep. So the bike was framed, and the frame was completely painted as well, while everything was disassembled and pulled off of it. And then there was a test and tune-in time. And tech notes, it's a wicked Rippa. Chris from Worcester. Unbelievable. Bike's super tight. Exactly what you would expect for a bike that Chris just framed. Things, let's say, ready for the showroom or for the races. This is the original seat on the bike. And real quick, before we go any further, I want to show you some of the original components. Let me see the camera, Shay, because I'm going to show a couple of things here. Like these fork, look how low the fork tubes come below the axle. These get chewed out like terrible. This is a fresh set, absolutely fresh. That's how you know. Let me see, bottom of the swing arm. Swing arm is no ding. This thing is at risk of sounding a little extra. It's miraculous. It's a total time capsule. Of course, original muffler, so the thing's never been looped out. Original seat. It's not perfect, but so, huh.
I already got all of that footage.
I know you did. I just wanted to kind of go over it again and show them the bottom of the frame rail, Shay. I'm gonna turn the bike over. Let me see. So the frame rails are absolutely perfect. Come on this side. The frame rails are absolutely perfect, exactly what you'd expect, and the crankcases inspected, they're perfect as well. This '84 model was the last year before they went to the power valve setup, so no power valve on this bike, just brutal power out of the box. Back in these days, the motor signed off early, but this is a bike that has a lot of low end and mid range, just oomph, you know, and they call it the big green giant. The Jolly Green Giant, rather, because it stood tall and it was a long bike, but just cool looks. It's got that, you know, the European style rear tailpiece here in the Unitrack rear suspension, KYB 43 millimeter forks up front, and then another classic, the fender brace up top here. This is an original OEM unit. The radiators are also original and really, oh my gosh, here, Shay, let me see the camera. This is how you know the rads are like basically perfectly straight. Back when I was racing every weekend at 16 years old, my YZ250 would come back totaled every weekend. New rads, you know, new plastics and stuff. So this bike's got no time on it. It's an absolute jewel, absolute time capsule. It's super, you know, it's tight, it's right, it's ready for display, it's ready for the track. Whatever you want to do with it. So any questions, call the shop line 860-454-7024. We could do financing through Freedom Road Financial. Call for pre-app, takes about 3 minutes. It's a soft pull, doesn't affect your credit. We ship it anywhere in the States inexpensively, so message your zip code for a shipping quote. Thanks for watching thus far, guys. Good luck bidding, and God bless America.